Story 3. The Black Rhino. Serengeti, Tanzania. It was a bright and sunny day in the village where Lucy and Jonathan lived. People were out and about in the narrow cobblestone streets, running errands or shopping. The siblings had finished their chores in the bakery that their parents owned and were in the garden, enjoying the warm weather and clear blue skies. Lucy was busy finishing her puppet show called 14 Cats, which she wanted to perform for her family the following week. Jonathan was trying out some new chess moves. In other words, a regular weekend. That was until they saw the bunny. Lucy and Jonathan knew from their previous adventures that the magic tree had sent the bunny. The tree probably had another adventure for them. They rushed to the forest and were welcomed by the magic tree. They started by telling the tree all about their adventures in London and how they helped the Prince of Elves. "The Elf Kingdom was very grateful that you helped find the magic stone," said the tree. "The elves hope you will visit them one day." The magic tree continued. "I have called you here today not to send you to help someone else, but to help me. I'm losing my magic." Lucy and Jonathan looked at each other, shocked by what they heard. "How can you lose your magic? Don't you have it forever?" asked Jonathan. "Every 100 years, I need special water to keep my magic powers. The water must be from the same place a black rhinoceros has just drunk," said the tree. "I need the two of you to go to where the black rhinos are. Follow the rhino to a lake. Wait for it to drink the water, and after it leaves, fill a bottle of that water and bring it back to me," said the tree. The tree continued. "One more thing. You must fill the bottle of water within 10 minutes of the rhino drinking it. If not, it loses its magic." "Where can we find the black rhinos?" asked Jonathan. "In the Serengeti," replied the magic tree. "The Serengeti is a vast plain filled with animals. It is in Tanzania, Africa. If you leave now, there might be enough time for you to get me the water. Are you ready to go?" They looked at each other with excitement and nodded. The siblings had never been to Africa, and the thought of seeing animals in the wild was something that excited them. They pulled the lower branch of the magic tree, and that opened the door, letting them inside the tree trunk. There, like the previous adventures, was the backpack ready for them. The tree asked them to close their eyes, and when they opened it, they were in a vast grassy plain. There were a few trees that looked like open umbrellas, but these were few and far between. They were looking around at the landscape, taking in the beauty of the African plain, when they saw a cloud of dust in the distance. It was a vehicle approaching along a dirt road. It pulled up, and a boy a few years older than them hopped out. "I'm Daniel. The magic tree asked me to help you," said the boy. "Hop in." They climbed into his vehicle, which had an open top, and they were on their way, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. "We need to find a black rhino," said Lucy. "Can you take us to one?" Daniel laughed. It's not going to be that easy, he said. The black rhino is one of the rarest animals to find in the Serengeti. They almost became extinct. It might take a long time before we spot one. We don't have much time. If we take too long, the magic tree loses his power, said Jonathan. Also, I'm quite hungry. I don't suppose there's a snack shop anywhere close by. Daniel laughed again. We are in the middle of the Serengeti. There is nothing but wild animals for hundreds of miles, he said. He glanced at the shocked look on Jonathan's face. Don't worry, we'll soon get to camp, and we will have a meal before going to bed. As they were driving, they saw several zebra and giraffe. Zebras and giraffe are common here. We see them all the time, said Daniel. He suddenly stopped the vehicle, lowered his voice, and said, Look behind the tree and don't get out of the vehicle. It was a lion, majestically walking with his mane blowing in the wind. The lion promptly lay down and seemed to go to sleep. The lion is waiting for his dinner, Daniel whispered. The lioness must be out hunting, and when she finds food, she will bring it back for the lion to eat. Here, kitty, kitty, whispered Jonathan with a grin as they started to drive away. They passed a lake that had hundreds of pink flamingos. They also spotted a herd of elephant, including a baby elephant. The baby seemed to be very playful and kept going in a different direction and had to be brought back by its mother. This is a magical place, said Lucy in wonder. We are so lucky to be able to see all these animals in the wild. They soon reached a collection of tents in the middle of nowhere. This is a tourist camp, said Daniel. People come from all over the world to stay here and experience the Serengeti. I work here, so the two of you can stay in one of the tents. Daniel took them to their tent and showed them around. It was like camping in luxury. There were 2 beds, a bathroom, and a little sit-out that had 2 chairs. They went over the rules of the camp. They were not allowed to leave their tent after dark without a staff member accompanying them. He reminded them that they were in the middle of the Serengeti and wild animals could come in and out of the camp. After showing them their tent, Daniel took them around the camp. There was a big dining tent in the middle that was open on all sides. It had tables and chairs for the guests to sit and eat their meals. All the food and water needs to be brought in from the nearest town, but Chef makes us the most delicious meals, said Daniel. As they were looking around, Chef Alfred came over to say hi. He showed them the buffet that he had laid out for their dinner. It was quite a spread. There was fruit, soup, different local dishes, and dessert. Let's eat, said Daniel. They were all famished. Lucy wanted to try an African dish. Chef Alfred pointed her towards ugali, a thick and stiff porridge that you eat with a meat or vegetable stew. Lucy took some ugali along with some stew and sat at a table. Daniel showed her how to eat it by pinching off a small piece of ugali with her finger, dipping it in the stew, and putting it in her mouth. This is fun, exclaimed Lucy. It tastes so delicious. I don't think anyone is having more fun than Jonathan, said Daniel with a smile. They turned and saw Jonathan sitting by himself at a table. He had a plate that was piled high with eclairs, brownies, and of course, chocolate cake. He was digging into the dessert, happily staring out at the Serengeti. "Jonathan, you cannot have a meal only of dessert," exclaimed Lucy as she walked over to his table. "I've got my vegetables too," Jonathan replied proudly. He pointed to 3 carrots on his plate, almost hidden because of all the desserts piled high around it. Lucy shook her head, walked over to the buffet, filled a plate with vegetables, and plopped it down on her brother's table. "If we are going to be good adventurers, we need to eat a healthy and nutritional meal. That is the only way our mind will be sharp and we can solve mysteries," said Lucy. After dinner, Lucy and Jonathan had to be escorted back to their tent by Daniel, as it was pitch dark. There was a lamp outside their tent. They took it inside and went straight to bed, exhausted. In the middle of the night, Lucy woke up as she heard sounds outside. It almost certainly was an animal sniffing around, but it soon went away. She also heard the roar of a lion in the distance, but she was so tired she fell back asleep in no time. At 6 a.m., they heard a gong, waking them up. It was time to start the day. They quickly got ready, and since it was light outside, they walked by themselves to the dining tent for breakfast. Daniel was already there with his friend. "This is Libu. He is from the Maasai tribe and will be our tracker to help us find the black rhino," said Daniel. "What is a tracker?" asked Jonathan, smiling and waving hi to Libu. "It's challenging to find a rare animal like the black rhino. Libu is an expert in knowing how to find them," said Daniel. "He looks for their hoof prints and other clues to see which direction they have gone. He even touches the ground to see how warm the tracks are. Depending on how warm it is, he knows whether a rhino went by recently or a long time ago." As they were eating their breakfast, they heard a whooshing sound like a large bird. They looked outside the tent and saw a bird they had never seen before. It almost looked like something from the dinosaur age. When it flew by, its wingspan was nearly as big as a small car. It swept low and then disappeared over the tents. Lucy and Jonathan were agape. "That's a marabou stork. We see a lot of them around here," said Daniel. They finished their breakfast and head to the safari vehicle that Daniel had driven the previous day. Libu walked to the front and got onto a small seat on the hood of the car. "That's the best position for a tracker. He can see everything from there and can guide us," said Daniel. With that, they were off to find the black rhino and get the water for the magic tree. They drove along the plains, searching the watering holes where animals came to drink. They drove on for a few hours, but the black rhino was nowhere to be seen. Eventually, they pulled up by a small lake to have a picnic lunch. Daniel pulled out a bag that had sandwiches, and they sat and ate, enjoying the view. Lucy opened her backpack to get her notebook, and in doing so, the golden egg fell out. As in their previous adventures, the golden egg was what they had to use to get back home. Lucy tried to grab it, but it was too late. The egg rolled out of the vehicle and onto the grassy embankment by the lake. She was about to scramble out and get it when a monkey jumped out of a tree, grabbed the egg, and scurried back to the tree. Lucy shouted and startled the rest of the group. When she pointed out what had happened, Jonathan wanted to climb the tree and get the egg back. "It's too dangerous," said Daniel. "There are plenty of wild animals here, so we need to come up with a different plan." "We need the egg. We cannot go home without it," said Lucy. Just then, Libu exclaimed, "I've spotted the black rhino. There it is, on the other side of the lake. We must hurry and follow it." Lucy and Jonathan looked at each other confused. Should they try and get the golden egg from the monkey, or follow the black rhino to get the water for the magic tree? It took a second, but Lucy made the wise decision to stay back and recover the golden egg. "If we don't have the egg, then we cannot get home, and then it doesn't matter whether we have the water or not," she said. "Good point," replied Jonathan. "But how do we get the egg back?" They turned and looked. The monkey was staring at the vehicle, almost as if it was making fun of them. It jumped from branch to branch holding the egg. Lucy yelled, "Please, monkey, give us back the golden egg." She hadn't expected anything to happen, but to her surprise, the monkey stopped and looked back at her straight into her eyes, and then left the egg on the ground and went away. They all cheered and drove to pick up the egg, and then started heading in the direction of the rhino. They caught up with the rhino and followed it for a while as it slowly lumbered along. Before long, the group came upon another lake. "Let's hope the rhino drinks water from here," said Lucy. "Once it does, we then have 10 minutes to fill our water bottle before the magic from the water goes away," said Jonathan as he pulled out the water bottle from their backpack. The rhino made its way slowly towards the lake. Then, to the delight of everyone, it started drinking. "Let's get ready to fill the bottle and go home," said Lucy, excited that they were close to finishing their adventure. The rhino stopped drinking and started walking away. Lucy and Jonathan began to say goodbye and were about to jump out when Libu raised his hand. Daniel asked them to stay in the vehicle. He pointed to the right, and there was a lion, a lioness, and their 2 cubs walking towards the water. They stopped and started drinking. "You cannot get out now, it's too dangerous," said Daniel. "But we have to. We have only 10 minutes before the magic from the water goes away." "We have to get the water into the bottle before that," replied Lucy. "I've got an idea," said Jonathan. "We can run to the lake, fill up the water, and then turn the top of the magic egg to take us home. We can do this before the lions get us." "Yes, that's a great idea," exclaimed Lucy. She turned to explain to Daniel. "If we turn the top of this golden egg, it will take us home. We've done it on our previous adventures." They said their goodbyes to Daniel and Libu and slowly left the vehicle. As they started walking towards the water, the lioness raised her head and looked at them. They continued walking slowly. They reached the water, and Jonathan began to fill the bottle. Lucy had the golden egg ready. As soon as they started filling the bottle, they looked up and saw the lioness walking towards them. "Hurry, Jonathan, it's walking towards us," said Lucy, breathless. "Almost done. Get the egg ready," replied Jonathan. bottle got filled and they saw the lioness, now very close. "Hang on to me, I'm turning the top of the egg," Lucy whispered. Jonathan clung onto Lucy and she turned the top of the egg, but it was stuck and didn't move. They looked at the lioness and she was crouching. They were not sure whether she was going to leap towards them. Then they heard a honk. It was Danielle. The lioness turned, distracted for a minute, and at that same moment the top of the golden egg turned. It worked. They were back in the forest under the magic tree. "Welcome back," said the tree. "Do you have the magic water?" "Yes, here it is," said Jonathan, showing the tree the bottle. "Not a minute too soon. Quickly, pour the water around me," said the tree. Once they poured the water, the tree shook its branches and thanked them. Lucy and Jonathan had completed another adventure. "Boy, I sure could use a snack," said Jonathan as they head back home. The end. Now here are some fun facts about Tanzania. You can find these same fun facts under the written version of the story. Did you know that Tanzania is in East Africa? Its capital is Dodoma. The Serengeti is located in the north of Tanzania. Did you know that Tanzania was created when the countries of Tanganyika and Zanzibar merged in 1964 to form a single country? This flag is a combination of the flags of these two countries. Did you know that when tourists go on safari to Tanzania, they are lucky to spot all the animals in the Big Five? The 5 animals that make up the Big Five are the African leopard, the African lion, the Cape buffalo, the African elephant, and a rhinoceros. Rhinos have very poor eyesight and they cannot see objects clearly, even if they are only a few meters away. Did you know that elephant calves can stand within 20 minutes of being born and can walk in about 1 hour? Did you know that African lions live in groups called a pride? The male lion defends the group while female lionesses do the hunting. A lion's roar is so loud it can be heard for 5 miles. And finally, did you know that a group of zebra is called a dazzle? That's it for the story and fun facts for this week. See you next week.